Anthem TV, a free streaming digital community. With a click of a mouse or a tap on your phone, you have instant access to free TV shows, movies on demand, music, pay-per-view events, and so much more. Download Anthem TV on your smartphone, smart TV, or any streaming device and enjoy instant access. Subscribe and download Anthem TV today.
And welcome to the Texas Weather Connection here on Anthem Television. I am meteorologist Robert Luna.
Meteorologist Brian Silva. We got a lot to talk about, Sergio.
Yeah, meteorologist Sergio Lozano here. Yeah, we got Beryl re-emerging in the Gulf of Mexico. We'll talk about that, see if there's any beneficial rainfall in the forecast. We'll talk about all that and more coming up here shortly.
Guys, you know, this looked promising a few days ago for us here in the San Antonio area. And I don't know. I don't like our chances in terms of heavy rainfall here. That drought buster we needed. I don't think it's going to happen for us this time, guys.
Yeah, I think that the models have been trending eastward. We've been talking about that on our weather page. And here's the latest forecast from the National Hurricane Center. And they'll probably update this while we are on the air.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say probably in the next 10, 15 minutes, we'll see I believe a full advisory coming up here at about 10 o'clock, the top of the hour. So we may be able to update this right before we sign off, but take a look. I mean, we have Tropical Storm Beryl that is leaving the Yucatan Peninsula. It's emerging back into the Gulf of Mexico. It's still moving at about 15 miles per hour, but it's definitely, it was moving. It sped right through the Caribbean, and now it's going to start slowing down a lot, guys.
Yeah. So the consensus is for this thing to slow down as it reaches the edge of the ridge that is controlling its movement right now. It's going to round off there, and then that's what's going to begin lifting it northwestward and eventually northward. So you can see the timestamps get a little bit closer as it approaches the Texas coast, and that's indicative of it slowing down as it approaches.
Yeah. And as it slows down, that's the scary part of the system, because right now it's a tropical storm. It went over the Yucatan over land, but it will emerge over water. It's going to slow down, and the longer it stays over water is the dangerous situation that's ahead for the areas there in the central Texas coast, and it really the whole coast. Yeah. I mean, this is just a forecast. It could deviate toward the west or deviate towards the east or the northern part of the Texas coast there.
And we've seen it move quite a bit in terms of its the shift in our cone of uncertainty here. And one thing I want to point out here is when we were looking at intensity forecasts when this first started out in the Atlantic, heading towards the Windward Islands, the original forecast intensity for them was maybe Category 2 hurricane, right? Maybe 110, maybe reaching 115 mile per hour Category 3, right? But then it went all the way to Category 4.
Right.
We saw rapid intensification. We even saw Beryl reach Category 5 after passing the islands, going into the middle of the Caribbean, and then
24 hours ago.
Yeah, we saw it that there was shear ahead of it as it was approaching Jamaica that was supposed to weaken it, and she weakened, but very, very little. So what does that tell us about this storm? What is y'all's thoughts about this at the moment?
Yeah, so I think it's a very compact system, right? So it's not a very large hurricane. It's not like Alberta where it's all spread out. Yeah. This is a very compact system, and when they have an inner core like that in a compact system, it's hard to kind of break that down because you got to get a lot of dry air entrainment in there, or some other force to really slow the spinning top, so to speak. And there's a lot of energy embedded in there, and so the shear did do a little bit of a number on it, but the inner core itself remained intact. So when that shear relaxed just a little bit, I mean, you saw how quickly it intensified. I think it dropped another 10 millibars on approach to the Yucatan within a couple hours.
So the last like 80 miles before it reached the actual coastline of the Yucatan Peninsula, it dropped a good 10 millibars, like you said, Sergio, and we saw it jump back from a Category 2 up to Category 3 again. So it's been a very, very impressive slump. It's been unpredictable. And if you were looking at some of these forecast models in terms of intensity, just a couple days ago, we're looking at maybe only a tropical storm, high-end tropical storm hitting the Texas coast. And if you notice here on the forecast from the National Hurricane Center, we're looking at now HHH. So I know some questions have been out there. What does the S stand for? What does the H stand for? The D. So when we see an S, we're talking about tropical storm strength. When we see an H, we're talking about Category 1, Category 2 hurricane. If we see an M pop up, which we're hoping we don't end up seeing,
You don't need that.
yeah, then that's where we're talking about a major hurricane, Category 3, 4, 5. And then the D is our tropical depression. So that's our weakest state. And we see that as it goes up and towards the Dallas-Fort Worth area. That's where we start seeing it losing its tropical characteristics, and it's no longer going to have that tropical name that needs.
Yeah, or winds over 40 miles an hour, it starts dying out. So what's interesting over the next 24 hours as we go through the day Saturday, what Sergio talked about with that shear, it's not going to let it organize as quickly, but that shear goes away on Sunday in a lot of computer models, and that's when the system will wind up likely, and we'll see how long it takes it to intensify and get that inner core going, and hopefully we don't see a big eye or an eye in it, because that means it's intensifying very quickly.
Yeah, and that's that's the one thing that we're hoping that the Yucatan did do some damage to it. But let's say that bottom line, Beryl is not as organized as what it was 24 hours ago. Obviously, it spent the whole day over land. It's re-emerging right now into the Gulf, and so it's going to get a chance to strengthen. It's a matter of how much, how quickly, right? That's going to be the main thing to look at. And again, it's a lot further north of what it was intended to come off the Yucatan, so it's going into the waters a little bit sooner than what we were really expecting, even just 24 hours ago.
Yeah, and and I think that's what the models caught on to finally this morning. They realized, like, oh, this thing came in north and it's on the right side of the envelope, and everything kind of started following suit. One thing I did want to note is the aircraft haven't been able to get out there until recently. I think the 10 o'clock update will have the new data. But prior to that, when it was over Mexico, we can't fly our aircraft in there to get sampling.
Yeah.
So now that we have our aircraft going in there doing recon and drop sounds and all that good stuff, we'll be able to get a little bit, even a better idea of where we think Beryl is going to come in, and that'll help us out with modeling as well.
Yeah, it'll definitely give us a much better idea as to what's going on, not just in the storm, but around the storm too. So,
yes.
So that'll give us a lot better in terms of forecasting for the next 24, 48, 72 hours to what Beryl is going to do. I do want to jump to the next one. This is our water vapor imagery. Guys, again, we could definitely see that the center is going over the water now. It's emerging into the Gulf. But again, it's not as organized as what it was before, and that's good. But we know that now that it's over water, we know that we're going to start seeing things change with this storm. It's going to try to get itself organized. It's going to start to strengthen. Again, the question is going to be, how much is it going to strengthen? How long is it going to stay over the water? And there's a couple of things that we see here. If you notice on the left side here, we see looks to be another spinning situation here.
Just south of Brownsville there. You see that?
Yeah. So some that may not be familiar with this might be looking like, what is this? Is this something else, another tropical system? So Sergio, tell us about this that we're seeing closer to the Mexico-Texas border.
Yeah, we're looking at water vapor. So this is looking throughout all levels of the atmosphere, and we can see what we call a TUT low, or a tropical upper tropospheric trough. And these are notorious for causing shear over the system, as you can see. And it's also bringing in a little bit of dry air entrainment. If you can see on the west side, it's kind of eroding there a little bit. So these are not conducive for tropical development. And that's why we think over the next 24 hours, it's not going to really develop too much. This is kind of keeping it at bay, so to speak. Yeah. Tropical upper tropospheric troughs, or TUT lows, are very inefficient rain producers, but you can get a few scattered showers and storms within the circulation. But yeah, Robert, have you had any experience with these causing any havocs?
Absolutely. Basically, it's like you said, just that upper tropospheric low coming in. Occasionally, they do come into South Texas and produce a scattering of showers and thunderstorms, but it's not a major rainfall producer. But it does it's the driving force of where the tropical system's going to go. Yeah. And so it does tend to either shear the system or guide it. And right now it's shearing the system, but as it moves inland, the system will likely move into Mexico and continue westward. And then it'll allow this storm system, the tropical system, to develop.
To kind of wrap in.
It's an inefficient rain producer, is exactly what you said, but it will cause a few showers and thunder, and you can see a few showers trying to develop towards the center there as you got some heating. I mean, here and there you'll see a few showers.
Yeah, and like you said, it's gonna either do one of two things. It's gonna help with the shear against it, or it's going to help steer it. And that's what these tropical systems they feed off of one thing. They feed off that warm ocean content there at the surface of the sea, and so it wants to find that heat. It wants to find its fuel, right? No fuel, it ain't gonna last, and so it's gonna be steered away from that low to kind of keep that one shear at bay and allow itself to hopefully get a little bit more organized. That's what she's thinking, right? We're hoping that she doesn't, because right now the high-end forecasts are calling for maybe high-end category 1 hurricane as we're approaching the lower Texas coast, maybe up towards Corpus. But guys, this feels almost like a little bit of deja vu. We've seen storms in the past that have done this, and we saw what it did right before the Yucatan. We saw what it did right before the Windward Islands. It's rapid intensification, and we've seen, I hate to throw out names out there, but one that in most recent memory throws out to me is Harvey. Right. Harvey was a category 1, category 2, few hours away from landfall, jumped all the way up to category 4 in just a few hours. And I think that's the biggest concern on my end is we know the waters are very warm right now in the Gulf. And if it can stay over water long enough, my worry is that it's going to see that rapid strength. Now, we hope that that's not the case, but so many different factors here. I mean, 24 hours ago, we were looking at mainly all the forecasts taking this into the Brownsville area, maybe just south of Brownsville. And now we're talking about maybe South Padre skirting up parallel along the coast towards Corpus. A lot has changed in 24 hours.
And it's because of the angle of the coastline, our barrier islands down there. So as it approaches, even a difference of 10, 20 miles of movement, I mean, that affects where landfall is maybe a couple hundred miles north of the coast. I know we have a hurricane watch. We need to mention that from South Padre Island or the mouth of the Rio Grande all the way up to Sargent, Texas. And I wouldn't be surprised if later, maybe with this next update coming along, if they go ahead and they might extend it, or they might just issue the tropical storm warning beyond Sargent toward Galveston. So so I'm not sure they'll do a hurricane. They might do like a tropical storm warning and a hurricane watch up there. That's what I would do. But those minds are much smarter than I am when it comes to tropical forecasting. But yeah, I think if you live in Galveston, you can't let your guard totally down. I think it's a low chance, but it was a low chance just 24 hours ago. Look at where we're at now. So it's a much higher than it was 24 hours ago. So, but my gut tells me somewhere between, I guess, northern Corpus Christi to Matagorda Bay, somewhere in there is probably going to be the area to really start preparing for protecting your life and property. Yeah,
I think the areas we got to communities we got to talk about: Rockport, Seadrift, Port O'Connor, Port Lavaca, all those areas along the coast. But again, not just along the coast, but if you live within probably 30 miles inland, and if it does get to 80, 90 miles an hour, maybe 100-mile-an-hour winds, those effects are felt well inland. So those are the communities right now that need to start preparing. Exactly right.
Yeah. And so here we see the graphic from the Brownsville National Weather Service, and I mean, again, like y'all said, we got Hurricane Watch up right now from the mouth of the Rio Grande all the way up to Sargent, and we'll see the rest of the coastline here. But notice
because even Brian, if it doesn't even come inland at SPI, they're still going to be close enough, I think, where on approach they're gonna get onshore flow. The whole 9 yards, coastal flooding and riptides and all that. So that's why a lot of people down there are kind of like putting their guard down, and they're just like, well, it's not going to come down here. It's going to go up the middle and upper Texas. Well, not really. I mean, on approach, you're going to be dealing with quite a bit of rainfall and wind, and so that's why the watch is in effect for them.
Yeah,
Down there.
and you know, if this had taken more of a direct west northwestern route south of Brownsville, we would have still seen this hurricane watch in place. But
Yeah.
I feel like we also would have seen the hurricane watch going into the actual parts of the valley, the McAllen area, Harlingen. We would have seen
Inland, yeah,
counties.
inland watches, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, right here, you know, we're thinking from what National Weather Service has seen that it's gonna just, like you said, skirt South Padre, maybe go right into South Padre itself, but then go northward up along the coast. So the left side of a hurricane is typically not, we don't see as much of the effect. So we probably won't see, we'll still see some gusty winds, you know, west of Interstate 69, but we won't see those very, very strong hurricane force winds as far inland. Let's say compared to the Corpus area, northeast of Corpus, going up towards the Sargent area. If this takes a more northeastern turn, then we're going to see those effects of those very strong and damaging winds further inland. So we may see some more watches and even warnings be posted further inland for some of those communities. Victoria, maybe even reaching the I-10 corridor west of Houston. So it might be something that again needs to be watched. But with hurricanes, guys, we saw it even with just Alberto, a very weak tropical system. We saw
The
storms.
coastal flooding. That coastal flooding was
Yes.
major across most of the Texas coast. So now we're talking about a hurricane. So the surge going to come even further inland.
Yeah.
Hey, Robert, I had a question for you since you worked at the NWS. Are they the ones responsible for issuing inland tropical storm watches and warnings, or is that still up to the hurricane?
All the inland is by the local.
It's the weather service.
Okay.
All the local offices handle that, right?
So yeah, so they're probably just waiting a little bit longer.
And they all work together. They have big conference calls with each other,
coordinating
as with each briefing, and they get together and they start focusing. Okay, this is what we need to do. This is what we need to do inland and repair. So, absolutely, it's a great coordination. But yes, so the coastal ones are guidance from the National Hurricane Center, and then everything inland is done by the local offices.
Good to know.
Yeah. Now, down in the deep southern part of Texas coastline here, storm surge at the moment maybe 2 to 4 feet. Again, if this storm decides to get a lot stronger, we could definitely see much higher surge. If the angle comes in a little bit different, we could see higher surge in some areas. So this is at the moment a general estimate of what the least possible could happen here at this point. But it is very possible we could see some higher amounts in some of those regions here on the coastline. We'll move up towards the Corpus area. And again, we see those hurricane watches issued all the way up to Sargent. And again, I think this is where we're going to probably see more of the effects of the actual wind, along with the storm surge too. I mean, we're gonna definitely get some surge here. So
yeah, and then of course you take that coupled with the high waves crashing on top of that, and the tides and all that good stuff. And
then the other thing they look at is the angle as it approaches the coast. Because does it come in at a right angle? Does it come in parallel along the coast and then goes inland? All those play a big part in how much water comes in each bay, and how far inland. So very critical. A few miles makes a big difference.
I do want to mention that I have friends that notified me that live down in Rockport. They did get voluntary notices already.
okay.
So I know they're moving to San Antonio, but they're kind of already sounding the alarm up there. Rockport, Fulton, I guess, north of Port Aransas off of 35 up there, Texas 35. So all those little communities they've sounded the alarm bell at least to voluntarily go ahead and start moving.
And those are the same areas that were affected by Harvey.
Yep.
So
I'm pretty sure that's
know what's
fresh on their mind,
That, and again, even just last month with Alberto, they had the coastal flooding taking place.
They had a lot of tornadoes in that area too.
Yeah, so they're ready, and so if you are in one of those coastal regions that does get especially a mandatory evacuation, please make sure that you follow the law enforcement's advice to get out of there, because once the system comes in, they're not going to be able to get to you. So definitely pay close attention to the news. Make sure you are staying up to date. with everything. Let's move up to the Houston area, guys. And again, we see that the models are starting to turn this a little bit more towards the north and then towards a little bit towards the northeast as well. So the hurricane watch only goes up to Sergeant, right? But like y'all said, I think Sergio, you were mentioning that it wouldn't be surprising to see perhaps maybe a tropical storm warning issued for the Houston, Galveston area, maybe even up to Beaumont.
It's possible. Yeah.
We could.
And I think a lot will determine, and then I think by tomorrow, probably first thing in the morning, they'll start issuing the hurricane warnings to give people enough time.
Yeah.
They'll be within 24 to 36 hours, which is the threshold.
Yeah.
So, so I think you're right. North of Sargent, I know right now they're under just coastal flood watches right now, but just keep an eye. I think additional watches and warnings are coming soon.
Yeah, and with Alberto, we had, like you mentioned, the tornado threat that happened in the Rockport Corpus area, and so with this system, I think that the Houston area is going to be under the gun for a good tornado threat as well. And these are not going to be your EF3, 4, 5 tornadoes. I mean, we hope we don't get to EF3, but these typically are very quick spin ups, but they do just as much damage as we see EF0s, EF1s. Mainly with these tropical systems, sometimes we do see some EF2s with the stronger ones. Tornado's a tornado, and so make sure you are weather ready. You're able to tune in somehow to National Weather Service, weather radio. Make sure you're able to get your warnings and just be prepared, because especially with those tornado warnings, when we see spin ups coming off the waters of the Gulf, it's very quick. It happens very quickly.
Just to let you know, the advisory is already in for the 10 o'clock, and some of the watches now warnings have been extended eastward, and the track has been pushed eastward as well. So now it's almost Port Lavaca now.
Wow.
We're showing, and just trying to get the update here. It's still showing 90-mile-an-hour winds, but now, of course, the further east it goes, it's going to spend more time over water.
Yeah.
But it is showing on the new update. I'm trying to just read that here, but just on the top it says watches extended eastward along the Texas coast.
Yeah. I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it right now too, and I know John's on here, our fan John Villegas, and he says, "I doubt SA gets any rain from this now. Keeping faith, but I know it's slim." And I'll tell you right now that latest update that we just got here at the 10 o'clock hour, San Antonio, guys, is not really, it's barely hanging on to just being in the cone, period. So that is not looking good for us, honestly, in terms of rainfall. We're going to be on the dry end of the hurricane side, so not good. One of these days we'll get some.
Hopefully it'll just change enough of our weather pattern and give us some rainfall even after we get a tropical surge or something. So,
And this was earlier from the Weather Prediction Center. Again, just kind of highlighting where they feel the heaviest rain could be falling, and I think this is going to be updated, obviously, over the next 24 hours, more fine-tuned, and we're probably going to see some definitely higher amounts in eastern parts of Texas that do not need the rain. They're still
right. Unfortunately, that's going to lead to a lot of flash flooding and then eventually river flooding as all that rain starts to go downstream toward the bayous and all that good stuff. So, yeah, it's going to be pretty bad in northeast Texas. I think they're going to get someone in there is going to get a foot of rain. So,
yeah, somebody in there. Exactly right. You're exactly right.
And this was earlier from the National Weather Service office over in Corpus. Same thing. I think these numbers are going to probably, after this latest update, these numbers are probably going to go down quite a bit from Corpus West.
I think along and east of the US 77 corridor. So basically Corpus, Victoria, and then points towards Houston along and either side of that by 30 or 40 miles.
30 or 40 miles.
Yeah.
Like you said, and you said earlier, it's not a big storm like Alberto was. It's more compact. So more of a narrow line going straight up.
Mm-hmm. And again, when we see all that rain, especially with areas east of San Antonio, that have had a lot of rain this year already, it's not going to take much to see some flash flooding. So same thing. I expect this to probably jump up to at least the moderate at this time tomorrow for areas in the Houston area.
Yeah, they'll be able to pinpoint it a little bit more. So I think you're right, Brian.
And I wish that we could do something to get that rain to come over here. I think at the moment, as we were talking about it before the show, maybe the cold front that's here could kind of spark things up for us. So that might be our best shot to get something.
We do have a chance of rain tomorrow, and it won't be tropical. It'll be associated with a cold front.
Yeah.
And I know Sergio
July.
You said you talked to somebody up in North Texas, Sergio, and their
Yeah,
temperatures in the
I got
70s.
a couple of friends up there, and they were telling me it was in the 70s and north wind blowing. There was like the kids were riding bikes, and oh man, they were loving it. It's like a rarity.
Absolutely,
especially in July. Nonetheless, 4th of July weekend, and we're talking about a cold front. I mean, we're not talking about freezing temps, but man, might as well be concerning what it was and what it should be for the summer. So, storm surge, guys. Again, I expect this to be revised as well. And this we'll probably see a storm surge watch, I would imagine, issued further north. I'm not sure if it was on this update, Robert.
I think it was. It's been extended.
It has been extended also. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll start compiling all the graphics, the newer graphics, and we'll post that to give everybody an update. Again, we figured that while we were on towards the end of our show that
if you could go back to that graphic, Brian, just a little bit. I think the area, just to pinpoint everybody, probably the area that's a big concern now is Matagorda Bay, and then just northward of there towards maybe even getting closer to Galveston, but probably Matagorda Bay is what it's looking like right now. If we were to follow that track perfectly, it would come into Matagorda Bay. So
and maybe Robert, you can speak to this because I know hurricanes on approach to Texas, they normally tend to come in and then run parallel, but to parallel the whole coastline like that's pretty interesting. I can't remember a system doing that, right?
I mean, to me, if something like that were to happen, I think we talked earlier, that would be something in September, October. You got a cold front, a trough digging, and it takes off to the northeast. Not in July, and something that doesn't happen too often. Usually by then you got the cold front coming through, and that system's going due north towards Louisiana. So to parallel the coast, not that I know of and remember. So
yeah, interesting.
So a lot has changed in 24 hours. In the last 24 hours, a lot has changed in terms of what we were expecting to what we're seeing now. I'd imagine we're going to continue seeing changes overnight into the morning tomorrow. At this point, I would say anywhere from South Padre all the way up to Port Arthur and the Beaumont area. Have a plan in place. Have a plan ready to go. If the storm we're going to see it, we're going to have a better idea tomorrow night where this is probably going to be making landfall come Sunday. Be ready to execute your plan. Be ready to at a moment's notice, if you're told you need to evacuate, get out of there. Don't put your life in danger.
Agreed. Now, one thing that I do want to mention is not all is completely lost. This system is bringing in a lot of tropical moisture, and normally when they hit land, they do spread out. So hopefully this thing spreads its wealth out a little bit. We get into at least a rain band or two, and at least get under that tropical canopy. We can get that with some daytime heating. I still expect scattered afternoon showers and storms for the rest of the week. It's not going to rain as much as we wanted. It's not going to rain all day, every day, but at least each and every day there will be a chance of seeing showers and storms. And that's better than 100 degrees and heat every day.
Yeah. And Sergio, you're absolutely right. I mean, Robert, you were talking about how, when we have it later in the season, a cold front's coming in that really steers us off towards the northeast at a very rapid pace. Beryl is not going to get out of the region very quickly. I'm looking at the newest update, and it looks like, Monday morning is when we're looking at possible landfall again around the Corpus area, maybe up towards Matagorda Bay. But by Wednesday night, she's just going to be getting into Arkansas. So she will be in the area spinning things up in the atmosphere. And again, Sergio, like you said, that's going to keep our rain chances at least there. It won't be non-existent. Right. It's just that I know that a lot we're hoping for, and we were too. We were hoping for really some,
it's a good soaking rain.
Yeah, and so we still could. We could end up underneath one of those tropical downpours. But we'll just have to see how it plays out over the next 72 hours.
Yes, sir. Agreed.
So
I think the best way is be weather aware. Those people, especially out in southeast Texas, as the storm comes in, river flooding will be a problem. Flash flooding will be a problem. The tornado threat will be out there. So be prepared, especially in that east, or northeast and eastern quadrant of that hurricane as it comes in. That's what's predicted to happen. More than likely, a 90-mile-an-hour hurricane, and hopefully we don't have a major hurricane, but just something that comes into Texas and spreads the rain around, especially in the drought areas.
Yeah, and I want to say thank you to everybody, especially over the last few days. We've had a lot of people that have been reading our updates that we've relayed from National Weather Service, from National Hurricane Center, and just kind of our thoughts in there as well. And we've had a lot of shares, and so please share out, because you never know who may not be seeing this, and your share could get them weather ready and weather prepared for what's coming to their area. So
yeah, you're right, Brian. Like, I mean, we talk about like Houston and Galveston now being possibly under the gun. I mean, just 24 hours ago, they were like the outlier, like less than a 5% chance of impact. So they probably are not top of mind right now thinking about this stuff. And now it's like, oh crap, we got 24 to 36 hours to get our stuff together, So a lot changes really fast, and the best way to get that information out, like you mentioned, is to share things out, or at least mention it in conversation and say, hey, I follow these guys or whatever, and that really helps everybody out.
Absolutely.
So my final thoughts for tonight, guys, before we sign off. Again, if you're along the coastline, just be weather ready, be weather prepared. We know that it's going to hit somewhere in Texas at this point. How much the coastline it hits, it's to be determined. Again, up in the Houston area, Galveston area, it's time to start looking and paying more close attention to what's coming your way. But at the same time, I'm hoping that this does not, even with this latest update, it looks like it's going to spend even longer time out there in the water. So we're hoping that this is not, strengthened too much.
I'll just say that too, and a lot, forecasting is extremely difficult with a lot of nuances and variables, and like we mentioned about the Tutlow, and that's keeping it at bay, but who knows if that thing gets out of the way quicker and it's spending more time over water, then it can keep it even quicker. If it's slower to move out, then it keeps it disorganized longer. So all those things, plus just the shelf of the water, the continental shelf, and how it is. If you're along the Texas coastline, time is now to enact your preparations to protecting your life and property. And we wish and pray for everybody down there. And of course, always willing to welcome you to San Antonio if you need to.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And my last thoughts, as that system comes across the Yucatan and coming out in the Gulf, of course, the recon will begin in full blast, multiple airplanes going in there, or not just in the lower part of the system, upper part of the system. They're getting all the bit information. And once we know the exact location of where that low develops, the spin comes out in the lowest level of the atmosphere, then they'll have an exact plot and even a better idea. So I expect a very good plot and I guess forecast, especially by tomorrow morning, by noontime tomorrow, as the planes fly in there. So it'll be interesting. So stay weather aware over the next 12 to 24 hours.
And we'll definitely keep you updated on our page. Like I said, we'll try and get some of the newer graphics that just came out. We'll try and get those posted up as well for everybody. If anything, what we'll do, guys, we'll put them in the comments of our video. That way they can refer back to it. Then we'll try and get a post up maybe early tomorrow morning. And as we get closer to impending landfall, we'll keep our updates going. We know we're probably going to see, again, flash flooding issues, damaging winds. We're going to be talking about storm surge, tornadoes. So we're going to have a lot on our plates to keep you all up to date, but we are here to do that. So if you have any questions for us, please feel free to message us. You can comment on the video. We'll go ahead and reply back. Other than that, thank you for joining us tonight. I'm meteorologist Brian Silva.
Meteorologist Sergio Lozano.
And meteorologist Robert Luna. Have a great weekend.
Thank you all, everybody. Have a good night.
Anthem TV, a free streaming digital community. With a click of a mouse or a tap on your phone, you have instant access to free TV shows, movies on demand, music, pay-per-view events, and so much more. Download Anthem TV on your smartphone, smart TV, or any streaming device and enjoy instant access. Subscribe and download Anthem TV today.